Hey B, hey. I see we got people joining from Arizona. Hi, Nikki, Nakia, Aaron, Neen, Jasmine. I almost forgot of y'all for a second. I was just about to talk to Tandy. Salah, how are you guys? Hey. So I want to introduce Tandy because Tandy is very dear to me. Tandy is an instructional designer. She has an education background and she has been in the Hive for 2 years now. 2 years now. And we always have a great time. We at Black on the Job appreciate all that Tandy does. He has helped transition hundreds of you guys into thriving careers from learning and development, training specialists, corporate recruiters. He has kind of done it all, instructional designers. Recently, I had got a post that I need to get up. And it was a lady who was a kindergarten teacher too, who was inspired by one of your lives. So I want to say welcome back to the Hive. And for all of you guys who don't know Tandy, she is our IDB, our Addy Baddie, and I'll let her do a little talking now. Tandy.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be back, Sin. Like Edmondson said, I'm a senior corporate instructional designer. I work for a modern data protection company, and I've been there, I'm going to say August, it will be 2 years. And so basically in my role, I just recently had a title change to learning experience designer. So in my company, that's like a bump up, but it's still like the same level as senior, almost in a sense. But what I do is I lead and design, the broad designs for our sales acceleration team. So whether that is instructor-led presentations, any type of curriculum such as assessments, e-learning courses. So pretty much do it all.
You do. I find it really interesting how they are changing a lot of the language that's now incorporating a lot of the DEI in there, like a learning experience specialist, and more so making sure that I like the language though, because it also gives the presidents that the person who is receiving the information is in a space of being a student. And
That's
in that
right.
space, trying to learn and grow, and the materials being produced for them should be in a way to where it could be absorbed, for different types of learners. And I like that. I like that. Now that you have kind of grown into another senior level role, what do you think is one of the most impactful things that you do now?
Um, the most impactful thing I do now is I work very closely with program managers. So my opinion, my thoughts, ideas count. And I'm able, even though in my company, they tend to scope out the projects. And when I first started, I'm like, okay, so what do I do here? Am I just here to just develop the course? But now I'm more involved in the process, what the courses will look like. We look at KPIs. We look at what are the business goals. And we also look and see how we can tie those into our personal goals. So I have a manager that is all about helping us grow. Like she's very intuitive. She picks out your strong points without you even realizing. And you're like, yeah, I was just thinking that's the direction I want to go. So I would say this year, I kind of put a lot of things on the side and I really focused in on my role. And I can definitely say it's leading me to a different path outside of the title instructional design. So this field can lead, and we'll go through that, but this field will lead to so many different possibilities where you don't just have to stay in that role, instructional designer. And so like in our previous class I did, um, yeah, the previous classes that I taught with Black on the Job, a lot of times when I have those one-on-one coaching sessions, I tell them, don't just get stuck on instructional design. It's a whole umbrella, a lot of different occupations fall under that. So those are some of the things we're going to go through in the class. But this year, go back to your question, it was really for me about growth and seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you shared that because one thing that I really want a lot of our bees to understand is, and this has been like my little thing this year that I want to my goals as a CEO is for people to kind of understand that what you love and what you're good at, sometimes they're just in the wrong industry to where they're not appreciating that, right? Like you
Right.
coming from an educational background, those of you guys who are like in the social fields, education or social work or even administration and HR, you're used to being the person that have to provide all this information, but other people are making the decision, but your voice is not in the room. Whereas within the role, like how you're doing learner experience, you being an educator, you being the person that's bringing that, knowledge to the field, is that your voice matters just as much as the person who's making a decision. They're like, no, I want to collaborate with you on the decision. I think that what you have to say, your viewpoint on what the learner needs, is important. And I know, like in education, yeah, we can talk about teachers not liking their salary, but quite honestly, from my humble opinion, I'll let y'all teachers tune on in. They knew their salary before they got in. So when
Yeah.
teachers, when educators, when social workers, when people who are not in these fields, when you guys see these professionals leaving this field in droves, it's not just because they're not getting paid enough money. A lot of time it's because they got into the field with the mindset, I want to help people. And so when you put them in a position to where they have like the, they're like the like model for the person that's there to help, but in reality, their voice was not taken into consideration for the curriculum, for the standards, for what a performance metrics we're holding these students to, and so they're kind of being muzzled, and it's that silence that kind of pushes them out. And like you being in a field where, okay, now I'm the learning experience manager, I get to say, what is important, not just to the company, but an advocate for the person on the other end receiving that material. And like to me, it's kind of like full circle of like, okay, well, this is the reason why I got into teaching, because I wanted to help, but now you can in a different way.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I was seeing
No, I
that some
think I
people
lost
said
you.
that they were in,
Your last sentence.
oh, I think your connection, Candy. Let me message you here.
Is that me? Oh, no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can? Okay. So that you brought up a great point. You can't hear me? No.
Okay.
You can? Okay. So you brought up a great point. So I've been in education for quite some time, over 15 years in education. And when I first started out, I was a social services case manager, which went into field practice advisor, where I trained the new incoming social service managers. I did that for about 3 years after college, and then I decided to go into public education. So I taught grades first, fifth, pretty much all of elementary. And during that time, when I went into education, I told myself, even my mentor told me, you will not be here. This is not your long-term goal. And, for me, coming from social services to education, there was a bump in my pay, and it helped me to get past that poverty. I was broke. And so for me, staying in education, like you said, it wasn't about the income, it was about the different opportunities. And
Mhm.
so while I was in education, of course, they use you until you're bone tired. But I took advantage of professional development courses, took advantage of training the school district, the local schools, and it led me to other career paths. And so I tell people all the time, when you interview, a lot of times people will say, well, if you're trying to leave the field of education, it's going to be difficult for you to sell yourself. And
Yeah.
I would go into, I didn't let that discourage me. I would go into the interviews and say, well, if I take away education, then who am I? It helped shape me and molded me to be able to fit into these positions that I'm in now. So I tell people all the time, social services, corporate trainers, teachers, all of those roles will definitely, your skills are aligned, they're transferable. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how I would like to, from your words, from someone who is a master structural designer, what is instructional design? And if someone had no idea what the field is, what would you say it is?
You know, I always say this, it's a systematic process of creating engaging learning content, whether it's e-learning courses, whether it's instructor-led training, whether it's something simple as a webinar, something simple as planning this live, planning graphics for a particular course or resources. And so what goes into that is you're looking at, you're utilizing instructional design models along that decision making. So along with creating any type of learning materials, the goal is you're looking at what are the business goals and what are the needs of the learner. So you start to analyze the needs of the learner, you assess what resources are available, you look at designing assessments, developing any type of materials that is needed. So it's just a matter of utilizing different learning strategies. Each company, I've worked at several companies where some instructional design models were mentioned, some were preferred over the others, some were never mentioned. And so I know we hear a lot about ADDIE. And so with ADDIE, when you're creating materials, I think I'm jumping a little bit too soon, but with ADDIE, you're looking at the analysis, what, like I said before, what are the needs of the learner in the business? Design, you're looking at, during that process, you're outlining what is the course or the curriculum is going to look like. You're planning what the assessments or any of the resources in the curriculum will look like. And once you get those approved, you move on into the development stage in which you are actually building out those courses, creating those assessments, developing your PowerPoint for your instructor-led presentation. And then the next step is implementation. That's when you're actually handing over that course. If you're an instructional designer, you're handing over those instructor-led PowerPoints or that e-learning course to the learner, to that particular department. And they take it, and, you know, of course, at the end, sometimes they take surveys. And then the final stage is evaluation. So just like teachers, instructional designers, program managers, you know, your manager in that department is looking at that data to see how effective it was. Yep, there you go. And so as teachers, when I was a teacher, and even though I'm no longer in a classroom, I'm still certified, and I have 2 babies at home. And so when I look at their grades, when I go into Gradebook and I look at their assessments that they bring home, along with the teacher, I'm thinking about, well, how is she going to work with them based on these grades? And so in a classroom, we're using that data to drive instruction. You're not going to move on and teach the new standard if 90% of your students did not retain the information. You're going to go back and you're going to focus on differentiated instruction. You're going to place your students in learning groups based on their level to make sure that you meet your learning goal for your classroom or for your school.
Yes, yes. And so we're going to play a little game with you guys so that you guys can understand this concept and look at it on a broader sense. Because one thing I do understand that sometimes is difficult for us is to see, we get overwhelmed with job descriptions and we get overwhelmed with new fields that we haven't heard of. And so when we say the word creating educational materials, I want you to write in the chat, comment if you've ever had to create a procedure document at work. Let's say, for instance, you work in HR and you're the person that had to put step-by-step instructions, or you were an IT specialist and you had to give over step-by-step instructions on how to get something done. That portion of creating a document is what we call the material, right? And learner, when we're using the word learner, a learner is a person who is reading that material in order for them to understand how to do something, right? So Paige, Simone, what have you created? And in this example for a teacher, this ADDIE model is considered a methodology. And methodology is just a certain way something is done, right? You don't got to make it complicated. If you are a teacher, the ADDIE methodology will break this down. The A for analysis is analyzing the students, right? If you're here, you've been a sales manager, if you've been in social, if you've been in HR, if you've been in even tech, and you've had to performance analyze performance, whether that be student performance or your team's performance, right? Or maybe you're in marketing and you had to figure out how this campaign went. Maybe during the pandemic, y'all was like, girl, I'm about to open me up a little Etsy shop too. So you start making your Facebook post and you had to say, well, how many likes did this post get? I wonder if the post I did last week did better. That is that content analysis, performance analysis, student analysis, right? Chandy talked about her being a mother and task analysis. I'm sure she give her children millions of things to do, and then she got to go through and say, "Hey, this is the way I told you to do it last time, but you did it this way," right? So comparing contrast, that analysis portion of it, right? Then we move over to the D in design. And it makes sense to go to the next step. After I decide how well you did or you didn't do, then I need to figure out if we can create develop design around it, right? So if I told you to do one thing, but you did it a different way, after analyzing where you didn't understand, I'm then going to create something that will help you understand that, right? And whether that be an instructional strategy design, okay, I need to figure out a strategy on getting this information to you in a way that you can understand it. Maybe it's a flow design. Maybe it's a learner objective design, instructional strategy design. Then we move over to development. After I come up with a plan of action, I didn't analyze what you got going on, I didn't create my plan of action. Now I got to actually create what I decided. And that's a development. So I'm going to develop the content. Maybe I got to give you a list of rules. Maybe I got to create a video, right? So now I'm doing a design video, a learning video. So I got to say, hey, this is how you do something. I'm sure y'all didn't send step-by-step directions before to where, or if you work at a company where they have a SharePoint and they may have, if you're in HR, you created that SharePoint to where as people are being onboarded to your company, there's some video content on how to do things or how to go through the onboarding process, right? If you're a teacher, that curriculum development, right? That curriculum development is you creating that learning material for your students. After we then looked at it, came up with a plan of action, then we created it. Next thing to do is give it out. So that's going to be where the classroom management or facilitation, if you were the one that would actually had to present that information you came up with, assessment and feedback, clear communication, that's where that I comes from in Addie. And then lastly, after we did all that, we done figured out what's wrong. We came up with a plan of action. We created the plan of action. We executed the plan of action. Now we got to see if the action was actually having some action behind it. And that's when we're evaluated. Okay, did we go about this the right way? Maybe I need to send out a survey and see if they really understood what I said. Maybe I got to come up with a quiz. Maybe I got to come up with a test, right? If you're a teacher, you have to gather all those grades and then analyze, okay, everyone got question 4 wrong. Okay, they all can't not know question 4. It must be in my D in design in the way that I delivered that material and implemented. A gap was missing there, right? That way I can come up with an improvement plan and I can report and communicate that information. Those layman skills or entry skills are what you build upon in instructional design, because that reporting and communication, just yeah, you may have to report those grades to a parent, but that same type of skill set will be needed to report an evaluation to a stakeholder, whether that be a business owner or a director, or as Tandy said, she's collaborating with program managers. These are the adding models and how teachers even adopted it in today's time. You guys who are in social service fields, HR, sales, This is how some of you guys are already using concepts or portions of this model. And quite honestly, a lot of you guys, the whole thing in your day to day life. And so I just, a day to day role, so that you guys can kind of see what that looks like. Go ahead and put a B in the chat if that makes sense. Did I do a good job explaining it?
Yes, you did. And it takes me back, as a teacher, it takes me back to sitting in those IEP or SST meetings where you have to report your data and how that student is performing. So,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So they already have a portion of that going. And I love this field for teachers too, because we have two things coming together. And a lot of times when we get into certain fields, we think that maybe tech or technical opportunities are not available to us. So, Tandy, in your perspective, from your professional opinion, do you believe that instructional design is someone working in tech, or they just have technical aspects?
oh, I think I lost you.
Ooh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I said, in your professional opinion, do you think instructional designers are tech professionals, or do you feel as though they work in tech, or they are tech, if that makes sense?
Um, well, that's an interesting question because some instructional designers do not really need that technical skill. You have different types of instructional designers. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so you might have an instructional designer that's simply just writing out that content. They're typing it out in whatever tool they use, whether it's Word, Google Docs, however, and then they're passing it on to another team. Um, I would say at least have Microsoft Office skills such as Word, PowerPoint. But when you go into more advanced technical skills, yeah, that would probably be more so for a tech industry. So maybe you're working on the engineer side at Microsoft, or you're working at a cybersecurity company where you're working closely with the engineers or the technical trainers.
Mhm.
So it just really depends on the company, your team. I would say if you have very limited technological skills, there is something simple as YouTube Academy. Start watching those free videos. If you have a subscription to LinkedIn, do those LinkedIn learnings. I mean, there's so many free resources out there, but a lot of times people are afraid to apply to those roles because they're like, well, I'm going to need to know this and that skill. And sometimes that's not the case. Now, there are certain tools that instructional designers use to develop e-learning courses, and most companies use a software called Adobe Captivate or Articulate Storyline or Rise 360. And so some of those tools have a steeper learning curve, but at the same time, there's free resources. Those companies provide free tutorials so that you can watch step by step and build at the same time. So it really depends on the role and the type of instructional designer that you are.
And I'm glad she brought that up, because not all roles in instructional design are tech. And something else I want you guys to know is that y'all know how much I be hating when y'all get stuck on a word. And not all roles in instructional design are called instructional design. And so, what I
Absolutely.
mean by that is that we have a lot of different roles in instructional design, and there's a lot of different ways that people learn. So, if we're looking at F here, it is common to have a blend of different learning experience, from online learning to we've seen these roles in gaming. And Giovanna says hi. And Giovanna created clinical SOPs, sonography protocols, and marketing strategies. She says she designed toolkits and manuals. She was in our DEI ID class, and she's just catapulted. And I believe she even has her own consulting company now. She worked with Tandy and Dr. Miller, I think a cohort or two ago. Giovanna, when did you come through? Let me see what her messages say. I think 2 years ago now. Yeah,
Yeah,
back.
he was in the first one.
Yes, she was. She was. So there's so many, from social media instructor-led training, self-paced print guides for my recruiters, job ads, content creation. Even if you've ever had a podcast, there's so many different responsibilities and roles within instructional design that you don't have to be just an instructional designer. If you are a training and development manager, you are working within instructional design. You could be a chief learning officer. There are so curriculum developers. There are certain roles in the field that's just curriculum development or even managing a learning management system. There's a wide range, director of Center for Teaching and Learning. There's a wide range, distant learning specialist, roles that are available within the field. Last time I looked it up, there were 82 roles in instructional design. 82. So a lot of times you guys are typing in the same word, same word, same word. And there is a breadth of knowledge. And as Tandy said, there's a way in the field and letting that field expand you to other fields too. And so having those skills, you build on them. Tandy, this will be a good time to say when they're in the classroom, because Tandy is teaching our instructional design course. I think we're 3 weeks out, 2 or 3 weeks out. Y'all should be in the newsletter. What do you feel is the most impactful part of the class for you? Because it's so hands-on. I know that's what people love the most. What do people learn? What do people learn? Let's say, for instance, I roll up in there. I work at Toyota. And I said, you know what the hell? Tandy, you look real cute. I liked her background. I'm here. Tandy, what you going to teach me? Okay. Hi, Kay.
So I think I lost you, but so the first day, so the workshop is 2 days. So the first day I go into the basics. What is instructional design? We take a deeper dive looking at the different instructional design models. And one of the good things, I get a lot of feedback about the first day. I have them work on a needs analysis. So I give them 2 scenarios and they're able to go into breakout rooms and converse with others and get ideas. And just working with others, they see like, oh my gosh, like you do exactly what I'm doing. Or I didn't know that what I'm doing now could, land into this role. So I get a lot of feedback from that part. But day 2 is when we get to get our hands dirty. I get to walk them through the tools. We look at sample portfolios. We get to look at my shameful portfolio that I haven't updated in God knows how long. But we get to look, they get to see live examples and just the simple part of walking them step by step. And a lot of the feedback I get is, I was expecting you to come in and use this extremely difficult lingo, but you really break it down, you pace the class, and I came out feeling so excited, so confident, and there's going to be moments because there's homework. There's going to be moments, well, not necessarily homework, but an opportunity for you to sit back and reflect on day 1 and see what you've learned and how you can apply it the next day. So I get a range of emotions, but for the most part, I always tell them after class, you always can. I still get emails. I get LinkedIn messages letting me know, hey, remember in day 1 when you talked about this? Well, I got an interview next week. How should I answer this? So it's just an eye-opening class, and I really enjoy teaching it.
Can't y'all tell Tandy is a teacher by heart? Renee asks, are most of these roles remote? And yes, they are. And Renee, I'm glad that you said something because I know that Renee, what you did for my little sister was instructional design. So I give y'all some of my family business. Renee Dyson, she's a nurse, and my baby sister was studying for her LBN, depending on what course you're on, LPN. And so Renee has a course that she created to where she does tutoring and she provides materials and she walks people through so that they can pass their nursing license. That's a form of instructional design. Dr. Miller, yeah, she has she passed first time. Excellent. I recommend everybody to Renee. If you are looking to go into consulting, this was a course that I have a lot of our business owners take because you guys be wanting to do everything but don't know how to do nothing, and this helps you. You save a lot of money when you, and I'm telling y'all, as someone who runs a company, you save a lot of money when you know how to create your own content. So, for all of you guys who've ran social media pages for yourself or for others, knowing how to create your own content, understanding learners, some of the tools that Tandy had showed in the classroom. Now, I'm a Canva girl, right? And she definitely showed us some tips and tricks with Canva, but understanding Articulate 360, Camtasia, understanding a need assessment, which I never did before, truly transformed how we handle career coaching at Black on the Job because we ended up doing all of our intake sheets over and creating them more in like a storyboard way as far as our post notes and a need assessment for our intake. So, especially for those of you guys who are in the psychology field and you guys have therapy practices, I will say from a consultant to a consultant, this class was very helpful for that by far. We weren't capturing the right information on our career coach intake sheet. Not the right information, but not the best information. And Tandy kind of breaking down what a need assessment was, what's the viability of it, understanding the stakeholder, the customer from that perspective. And then her telling us about storyboarding and how to kind of create a picture and a line view of from point A to point Z. It actually increased our sales, increased our Google star reviews, because our feedback that we now give during the career coaching and the materials that we gave is now coming from an instructional design lens that had a lot of different elements now built in. And so, from a person who owns a consulting firm, because that's what someone now told me this is what this is called, it truly helped transform business. And so, for those of you guys who do have businesses, that portion of the instructional design is so vital because what happens is that I will then have to pay someone in marketing create materials. I would then have to pay somebody to come in and do CRM integrations and then surveys. But when she showed us how to build that in, I was able to implement that in the business. Even though this class was truly made for people that are trying to get jobs, y'all, I'll be in all classes. Giovanna said she is the class was everything. And Kay said that she took the class and she ended up getting a role as a facilitator. Okay, Kay. I took advantage of the coaching with Tandy. Now I will say, for those of you guys who do the instructional design and don't do a one-on-one with Tandy, you're missing out. Because I have a special place in my heart for teachers. Being able to speak to someone, what teachers do, and I'll tell you guys from a career consultant lens, having someone as an educator in the place of giving information to adults, they have a few things in their social skills that most people don't have, and that they have empathy integrated into how they speak. When you come to a classroom, a facilitation, a workshop, a certification, and you know that you're not in the place of authority, but you're in the place of learning, you could feel a little shocked, right? So, like how Tandy said, that people come into here thinking, like, oh, I don't know what I was going to expect. And she's breaking those things down. She breaks it down in such simplistic work, like a simplistic form that it encourages you to ask questions. It encourages you to understand that, like, hey, she's not going to judge me. I truly didn't understand this. But as a teacher, she has like this little like purse full of different ways she can break down the same thing. She can draw you a picture. She can give you scenarios. She can do hands-on learning with it. And so I think that portion of the class also is so vital, so vital in being able to understand something that has a technical aspect to it, and it's new for you, right? Like it's new, that portion of it. And I would say that that's one of the reasons why y'all love Black on the Job too, is our consultants have that approach and that perspective. But we learn more of it with instructional design and being introduced to the field. Lindsay, do you get a certification of facilitator completion? So, Tandy, is there a governing body over instructional design yet, or can you kind of explain to them about that portion, like if you need degrees or landing your first role?
I get that question a lot. So really, instructional design is really not governed. I know instructional designers. So for myself, I have my undergraduate in psychology. I have my master's and my specialist in instructional design. But I know people who are instructional designers with a high school diploma. That's it. Um, they don't have. I know quite a few people without what do you call it? Certifications. So it really depends. It's a boost. It'll help you if you have some type of certifications. So it all depends on the company. Some companies will not take your resume without you having a college degree. Most companies that I know of, that where I know people who actually work at them, they're looking at your experience. They're looking at your portfolio. And I speak with a lot of different managers, instructional design managers. They'll tell me, man, I had some really interesting applicants. And when it was time for them to move on to the next level, they didn't have portfolios. And so these are people who could have been in the door, but I personally think, maybe fear crept in. Maybe they're like, well, I don't have a degree, or I don't have this skill under my belt, and so they didn't either create a portfolio or was afraid that the portfolio was not good enough and didn't submit it. So it just really depends on the company. I always tell people learning is forever. You're always going to learn. So hop on these free webinars. So when I got into instructional design, I was just hopping into different programs. I mean, I already had my degrees in it, but coming from education to corporate, I needed to make sure I understood the business language. So I took classes. I took quite a bit of classes that did not offer certification, but it helped me to be able to speak that language during interviews. And also when I was creating resources, I understood the process even more. I understood that bigger picture of why I needed to, create those resources. So it just really depends. I would say do not let the fact that you have less education intimidate you. I would just say take advantage. I would put myself literally when I stepped into instructional design on the corporate side, I was breastfeeding. And I had to schedule in that time to make sure when I put that baby down to sleep, I had to make sure, okay, I signed up for this course, even though I wasn't able to take the live course. Let me watch the recording. So you just really got to schedule in time. Like I tell people all the time, like I talk to moms and they're like, I don't have time for this. I need that. I'm like, scheduling a time for hobbies, scheduling a time for learning. So like most people spend money on shoes and all that stuff. I do too, but the bulk of my money goes into taking courses.
Yeah.
So it's just about that mindset. I mean, because think about it. Like you say, what do you call white men? What was that?
You
a
have to be as
basic?
confident as a mediocre white man.
There
And
you
so
go.
yeah, she brings, and so there is no governing body over instructional design. And so what they really look for is number one, the portfolio, which Tandy goes over very well within the course. And number two is that applied learning, which is shown on your portfolio and how you've utilized those skills previously, which can be shown on your resume. When you do take the course with Tandy and I, we do provide a certificate of completion that, and it comes with the badge that goes on your LinkedIn as well, which attracts a lot of recruiters. However, it is extremely important, like she is telling you guys, that a huge portion is always going to be on the accountability of you. You're going to have to make sure that you definitely throw a lot of roles in the classroom too. And as you can see from the comments here, a lot of people do receive roles. We have about within what is it? Within about 120 days, within 4 months, we have an 83%. They get right into a role, but within 6 months, about 95. But it's very largely depend on your own tenacity. Are you going to take that class as she's going through the material for you so that you can create your portfolio and apply that knowledge, right? Because if you apply it, you'll be in good shape. But if you are someone who's not going to hit the ground running, it's not going to be as beneficial. And that's just the truth. Instructional design roles within the field, these are roles that what I would say entry level. This is someone lean and green, straight out the machine. I would say 65. What would you say? I would say 65.
Yeah, that's about right. If they go into the education industry, higher ed, it could be lower. Um, I know my very first instructional corporate design role. I left Atlanta Metro Atlanta 2000 as a teacher, and then my first corporate ID role, I was at 70,000. And so to get to six figures, I hopped around after every 2 years. So yeah, I hopped around and pretty so like where I am now, but I always tell people if you don't like where you are or if you need more money when you get into ID, don't be afraid to jump.
Yes, I remember your last jump. You hopped, girl. That wasn't no jump. You leaped. And so, I said, "Well, look at Tandy, y'all." So that is one thing. There is and Tandy, I believe she came from this academy. There is even an instructional design academy that does something similar to Black on the Job. It's about $4,000 for that live instruction. The biggest portion of instructional design is that I almost feel like you have to have an apprenticeship type classroom to where you're studying with someone who's in instructional design who could tell you what it looks like because they've been in those corporate settings, especially if you're coming from a field to where you're not used to hearing the decision being made. If you're someone who's like the decision comes down a few people to you, understanding how those decisions come to be is going to be foreign to you. And so having someone who's there live giving that instruction and saying, okay, when clients come in and we do a needs assessment, many times, oftentimes, our clients are looking for X, Y, and Z. Having someone who's doing that truly makes a world of difference in your career path because now you're able to see things from a lens that you will never get to see because you're asking to be in that room but you've never even been in that house, right? You haven't even got through the door and now you have someone who's been sitting in those rooms who could say, okay, from the lens as an instructional designer who has been there when final decisions are being made, who's talked to clients about their needs and has been able to tell people no and tell people correct projections. This is how that story goes. This is the information you have to present. This is how the response typically goes. And if you get this response, this is your next step. Having someone guide you through that is invaluable. And that's the reason why Giovanna, Kim, they're all up in here saying it was amazing for them because having that perspective for people who ask for mentorship, for people who, because people ask me all the time, like, well, Sen, can you be my mentor? It's like, no, because sitting from that lens and teaching that takes a lot of labor. And that's why we thank Tandy every time, like, Tandy, whatever schedule you got, we're working around, because that is a lot of labor of love, because that is a conversation in a room that we've never been in, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Tandy?
Yes, it does. It does.
Anu said that organizations decide largely experience and portfolio gets you in. Some orgs use relevant degrees for promotions, ATD, corporate, AECT, academia route, with some of the professional affiliations. Yes.
Absolutely. Yep, those are good ones.
Yeah. And so that's the reason why we love bringing this course about because we're able to help people get into a field that is open to them with their experience and skills, but y'all got to know how to highlight it. Y'all got to know what's most valuable. And so, if you've been in roles to where your voice hasn't mattered, but you want to contribute to someone learning, if you've ever came into your career coaching call and you said, "Well, I want to help people." This is a field about helping people understand something so that they're better at their job. And I think that's a quintessential part of instructional design that doesn't
Yeah.
often get said, but you're being placed in a position to where you can truly help elevate people into a different pathway by bringing them information, bringing them knowledge that they then can use in their roles to ask for salary increases, understand things differently. Um, Teddy, I believe one of your consultant jobs in 2022 was something about doing hair, right?
Oh yeah, yep, definitely. I met a client at Target. It was a white mom with foster children, and they asked me to come in and do a workshop on how to handle their children's hair. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to come in and do a live workshop, but I was able to do a virtual workshop with a few moms. It was based off of budget. But that was very impactful. And that's the beauty of with instructional design. The last session I taught was mostly people who did not want to go into corporate. They wanted to start their own LLC. And so, yeah, and I shared examples of how I was able to gain additional experience. And so, yeah, and so it's a lot of times when opportunities just fall my way. But I remember in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, I was working at a corporate company. I was off. I felt like they gave me the bare minimum just to get through. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this money. But at the same time, I'm going to start my own LLC. And with that, I was able to work with global clients. I learned different tools. I was able to work in different industries. And, just that experience that I was able to talk about, I was able to talk about it at interviews. And so the good thing about for me, having, working my 9 to 5, but I also have that choice with my LLC. I have that additional income, but I'm also getting additional tools under my tool belt, just in case, who knows, my next client may lead me to another opportunity in a different industry. So,
Perfect. And I definitely understand that. Now, Kimmy said that she does a lot of teaching as a nurse educator. Would this be something that would be a good fit for her?
can you repeat that one more time for me?
I said, Kimmy said that she does a lot of teaching as a nurse educator. Would this course be a good fit for her?
Absolutely, absolutely, because we'll be able to walk through, first of all, how to conduct a needs assessment, how to plan any type of training that she's going to develop, and also walk her through some of the tools that instructional designers use. And those tools she can use to help further build out the resources for the nursing program.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, yeah, that is a good idea. Okay, okay. So hopefully that gave you guys a lot of good overview. A class is in 3 weeks, I believe, guys. Let me make sure because I want to make sure my little notes is right. And
June
it,
through the 2nd, if I'm not
oh,
mistaken.
yes, first week of June, first weekend of June. And it's a great course. We do go over a lot of material. I do like that Tandy lets you guys get real hands on with the different technical aspects. You guys create different um, examples to place in your portfolio. She walks you through it. We go over different careers, and she does even one-on-one consultation that you guys can sign up for. And so, if you want to sign up, make sure that you guys get in. We do keep the classroom sizes small, and for obvious reasons. We want to make sure that live instruction and that hands-on portion of it is very, very niche, and that if anyone needs help, they can be walked through the whole thing. So, oh, and we're good on time. Okay, we got 5 minutes. So, but while we still got Tandy for 5 more minutes, what questions do y'all have? And I'm gonna go to the chat too. Giovanna said they make you do the work. I used that BOTJ coursework to help me in one of my MS classes last month. Oh, great, Giovanna.
Um,
That is so good. Yes, Renee. Kimmy said, what do we need to have at hand and prep for class?
Coffee, tea, something to keep you awake. That first day, it's a lot of information, but you are given breaks. Just come, bring yourself, be open minded. Leave your fears at the door. It's okay. Anything you're starting new, it's going to be scary, but just go to bed with a positive mindset and you'll be very, very pleased.
Yes, yes, and we have a classroom. So once you sign up, you are placed into a Google Classroom. Inside that classroom, we have lots of materials. We have some templates for resumes. We have different instructional instructions on the different tools that be used. As different roles come about in instructional design, especially entry level and mid level, we throw them back into the classroom. All of the recordings are within the classroom. And plus, a lot of times people partner up. And so we do make sure that we provide everything that you guys need so that we can walk you guys through it. Okay, Kimmy said, bet. Perfect, Kimmy. We'll see you in class. Any other questions? Oh, I'm so excited. Patty said, thank you for loving on the teachers. Tasha, I don't get it. Um, if they want to make sure they can utilize tech tools well for presentation. Yesha, I would say that could a one-on-one, I would say, Yesha asked it, but I'll answer for Ted because I know exactly how that portion goes. She said, could a one-on-one session include helping someone build their first class from scratch if they want to make sure they utilize tech tools well for presentation? It may take more than one session. As far as her giving the outline, you're going to learn what that looks like in class. If you need more details, I'll book that one-on-one. But I believe Tandy will tell you, okay, well, this is going to take 4 or 5 sessions, and she kind of works that out with you guys, right?
Right. And when it comes to a portfolio, I tell people all the time, I don't build portfolios for you, but I will walk you through step by step on the components that you would need and review those resources. Because if I build it for you, then you don't have those skills to apply at your new company. So
Oh, wow. And Anu said, and I hope I'm saying your name right. I agree with Tandy again on tools for nurse educator. In fact, L&D teams in healthcare struggle with understanding nursing content, and having someone with that experience gives you a leadership edge in the field since you speak the language and been on the floor with patients and nurses. Example, EPIC courses are done by IDs. And that's a great, great point, Anu. And that's something that why we love bringing other industries in. Learning is necessary in every single industry. No matter
yes,
what industry you go into, training and learning is necessary. So if you come from a background like you've already in nursing, of course we want to couple that with education, tools, and techniques so that you could teach other people in your field. If you come from a science background, a chemistry background, who's going to make those pharmaceutical manuals that go up in hospitals and gives out information on how to take a specific drug? If you already have a background within an industry, such to Anu's point and Tandy's point, that is what's most important. Thank you, Anu. I've been trying with my black name, girl. Renee said you have international ID clients.
I do. I
You
do.
do?
Yeah, yep, I do. I just got finished working with one in the UK, another one in Kenya, back in the earlier years. I mean, pretty much all over Europe. So being able, using that inclusive language, like she said, empathy comes into play. So you really have to utilize all of those skills when you're working with international clients. So yeah.
Oh, look at you, Tandy. Patty John, yes, accounting, especially when it comes to understanding processes. And then even with and I'm not gonna go too far in it because y'all not about to tie me up and make me lose my Tandy. Even within AI, a big portion of AI now is creating the language for AI across so many different industries. A lot of the ID roles that Black on the Job has been hired to fill in AI is instructional designers in other fields. So it's like, can you find me a chemistry instructional designer? I'm like, what? Why? Well, we're trying to get this portion of this bot together, and so
Mhm.
as AI is making waves, it's now creating this floodgate of instructional design roles because that bot only knows what someone tells it. As someone going through a lot of court things right now, what they tell me is your attorney is only as good as a client lets them be. Your attorney is only as good as the information you provided. AI is only as good as the information provided. And so, as companies are spending millions and billions into AI, one of the biggest ways they're doing so is through ID, because now we have someone who is an expert in training, an expert in getting somebody to learn, and people are using AI to do what? Learn and do things. And so as AI is becoming bigger, it's truly creating like this new floodgate of roles. Timmy, have you seen that?
Yes.
This was so good, girl. Let me tell you, I'm gonna get my whole coin, not even half of it with it. But that had yes, Ivana, because think about it. If I need to program my AI tool to do more sonography work, the best person for to do that is an ID person with a sonography background, because not only do they know the sonography portion of it, they also understand the instruction portion of it. I got someone, I got the bot to do the design, but I need somebody who is a what? A SME. Remember, class? A subject matter expert. And so ID is coming in as a SME consultant in a lot of these build outs, especially with Microsoft. But I'll let y'all do y'all, because we got a little Microsoft plant right here in the West Valley. And they call me like they my neighbor. I didn't have coffee brought to me at least twice this year. They said no, no. Y'all not getting it for free. Pay my bill first. But yes, Salah said that part, and I want to transition into the prompt engineering role. Yes, Salah. Oh, girl, you get too deep into it. Okay. So,
Right.
yeah, Salah, I didn't want to say prompt engineering. I was trying to make my way around the girl. But yes, that's exactly what it is. It's within prompt engineering. And so there are a lot of different fields, especially within copywriting, real estate,
Oh yeah.
for my journalists. Oh my gosh, my copywriters. Y'all leaving so much money on the table. Real estate right now. Microsoft is coming out with the entire program for different loan officers. And so there are recruiting ID in real estate heavy right now. And so, yes, these are the kind of fields that will be available. So, thank you, Tandy, for coming today.
Welcome.
So y'all gonna catch her in class. I did link it at the bottom. It's in the first weekend of June, the very first weekend. Make sure y'all sign up. I'll put the link again. And if y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment. We'll be here to look it up. And Tandy, I shall see you in class.
Yeah, see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Love, peace, and honey, guys. Bye.